Check 1, 2.
Don't stop, keep it on. Don't stop, keep it on. Don't stop, keep
All right.
it
Check
on.
1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Hello, everybody. This is Hello, everybody. This is Gonzalo, aka DJ G Silva from G Silva Sound again. And here we're going to be talking about DJing with Serato DJ Lite, but this time we're going to be using a controller. Now, the controller I'm using today is the Hercules Starlight. Now, the nice thing about this controller has all the basic functions that you need from The nice thing about this controller, it has all the basic functions that you need to DJ with. So some of the things that are similar to what we've learned already looking at the program, we have our play and pause button right here. We have our cue points. We have 4 of them right here. We have our pitch control on the sides. And we have our volume controls here, as well as our bass and filter. So let's learn about this controller. Okay. Hello, everybody. This is Gonzalo, aka DJ G Silva from G Silva Sound. In this video, we're going to talk about DJing with Serato DJ Lite with a controller. In part 1, we just started learning some of the basics in the program. Now we're going to be able to have those functions out here. So some of the similarities that we have: before we had the crossfader, so we still have that now, and it's actually a physical crossfader. Right above that, we have our EQ, our bass EQ only, or a bass kill. Pressing this button allows us to use this same knob as a filter. Right above that, we have our volume controls for channel 1 and 2. We also have our play and pause buttons, as well as our pitch control. Now, some of the things that we didn't have, or that are actually a little different, on the standalone version, if you wanted to use the nudge feature, which allows you to push the track or pull the track to either speed it up, slow it down, using the T, the Y for the left side, and the G and H for the right side. Now we can use the side of the platter to do the same function. So let's get started. I'm going to load a song on my right side. Now, unfortunately, here I don't have any way for me to scroll through my library, so I still have to go do it over here on my keyboard. So I'm going to load a song on the right side. So I'm going to hit Command and the right. So now I have a song here. Great. Now the next thing that I want to look for is Great. Now the next thing I want to look for is another song that I'm going to put on the left side. Awesome. Now the same thing applies. When we're trying to create a mix or we're trying to create a transition, we want to make sure that we have our pitch. So for instance, I'm going to play this song first, which is 105.2. So I'm going to move this down to 105.2. And now they should be both synced up. But before we even get started with all that, let's start to learn some of the features that we didn't have access to before with just using the standalone version. Now, the first thing that you're going to notice is that we have our headphones, our cue, here. Now, what this allows us to do is to bring up a song. So if we're playing a song on this side with the crossfader all the way over, or even with the volume down, we'll still be able to preview any of the songs that we're loading on the left-hand side, and vice versa. So if I had this lit up, we'd be hearing just this on our headphones. Now, there's really no way for me to show that function right now, unfortunately. But as a DJ, that's what you're looking for. That's what these controllers allow you to do, and that's unfortunately what using the standalone version of Serato would not allow you to do. So that's what you're doing with the headphones. You would plug them out through here. Headphones will plug into here, and then switching these will allow me to listen to the channel that it's lit up on. On this side, I have my master output, and that's the one that's connected into the sound that you're currently hearing. Great. Now, some of the other functions that we have on the screen, we have our auto loop. So our auto loop is also represented right here. Here's our loop function. Now, auto loop is just a way, and this is another reason why you have to make sure that you have your beat grid set up properly, that you have the right BPMs for every song. What auto loops allow you to do is set a loop at any point. So for instance, if I wanted to, I'm going to press play, and then I'm just going to go into the auto loop. So what's happening here? It's playing one beat. Not one bar, just one beat, just a one sound. I can duplicate that and play 2 beats. Or 4. Or 8. And once again, it really helps to have your beat grid set up properly. Now, the great thing about this is that I can set my auto loop at any time. So these numbers here represent a 1 bar, a 2 bar, a 4 bar, or 8 bar. And as you can see on my screen, back to 1 bar, 2 bar, 4 bar, and 8 bars. And I can set them at any time. So while I'm playing it, and to get out of it, I just press this button. Whatever button is lighting up. Or I can go over here and look at my screen and see that I have an 8 bar loop activated. If I want to deactivate it, I just press the button and I'm out of it. Now, this is also great to have just a loop playing. If you want to do a mix where you play an instrumental, so you play it as an instrumental and layer that on top of another song. Or if, let's say, for instance, you need just a quick loop of the song or a beat playing so you can make an announcement. So let's say, for instance, I'm going to talk, set my loop, and now this is going to play for 8 bars. I'm sorry. Now this is going to play for 8 beats. And I can talk right over it. And whenever I'm ready to let go or ready to let it finish looping, I just press this button right here, and now it's out of the loop function. And it'll continue playing from that point on. Okay, great. Now let's explain some of the other functions that we have over here. So like I said, we have our hot cues. We also have effects available in Serato DJ. So if I go here to my effects tab, I click this and you see I have access to a couple of effects. So I have effects like echo, high pass, low pass filter, flanger, reverb, and phaser. So I'm going to set this up as my echo on the first one. I'm going to put my flanger on the second and a reverb on the third. And I'm going to do this the same on the other side as well. Now, on the screen, I can activate and deactivate the effects by pressing this on button right here. So I'll play this song. Now you notice nothing's happening yet. Right next to that on and off button, I have a knob, and I can scroll up to make it more intense. Great. Now let's listen to the flanger. Awesome. And last but not least, let's listen to our reverb. Now, I showed you that because I want you to also know that you can control that using these buttons right here. Now, I have a shift button at the very top here, and anything with white letters directly underneath, or with a white bar, with a white banner with the black letters behind it, is my extra function or a hidden function. So that hot cue, when I hit the shift and the hot cue button, it becomes my effects button. So now I can add an effect by simply pressing it. Now the only downside to this is that I really have no control over how the intensity of that effect. I can just play the effect. And once I let go, it completely cuts off. So you have to remember that if you're doing some sort of transition, when I press and hold it down until the effect is completely gone, then you can let go of it. So let's try that again, but this time with the reverb. And now let's hear it with the flanger. Now, the last effect, or the last control over our effect we have here, is by pressing this button. And this will go and change the amount of beats that we can have our effect work on. So on default is always set to 1 beat. When I press it, it can be 2 beats. So let's listen to the echo on 2 beats. Try it again. We can switch it to 4 beats. Cause when you're with me, you're my with me, you're my with me, you're my with me, you're 8 beats. My whole world, like when it's just me, and like when it's just me, and like when it's just. And if I press it one more time, now we should go into 16th notes. Crazy. It's much shorter. Here's an 8th note. Quarter note. My homie, my love, even my friend now. Half note. This before I'm a and right back to my 1 beat. Great. So now that we know our effects, we can probably use that when we're creating our transition. So the next step that I want to talk to you about is our volume and our filter and bass section. Now before, when I was showing you how to mix, I was just using the crossfader to go from one side to the other. But having the ability for me to use an actual knob to control my up and down volume gives me a little more finessing that I can do with it. So I can slowly bring things up or down into the mix. Now for somebody like me, I like to do a lot of scratching in my DJing. So the way I showed you how I had the mixer set up, my crossfader curve, I'm going to actually change my crossfader curve to the way I usually have it, which is fast. Now, let me explain what that means. Again, fast means that anytime I move my crossfader just a little bit, I'm going to get full volume. So if I press play and I move the crossfader just a little bit, right now you don't hear anything. But the minute I move it a little bit, I'm going to turn my volume back up. So the minute I move it a little bit, you hear it at full volume. Now, the reason you want that if you want to learn how to scratch is if I had it in fade, I would have to move the crossfader pretty much to the middle in order for me to have full volume. Now, when you're trying to do something like a scratch, that's not really effective. If I want to hear that sound, but I want to cut in and out, essentially what you're hearing is just the forward motion of that scratch and not the back. You're not hearing this part. You're only hearing the forward. Great. Now the other function that we have over here is our bass and our filter. To activate our bass EQ, we just make sure that this light is off. Now what the bass EQ allows us to do is if we're trying to create a transition, it's ideal to have the bass of one song down to make room for the other song to come in. So let me give you an example of that. I'm going to play this song on the right side. I'm going to play this song on the left side, and on the right, I'm going to have this song ready. Now, one of the things that I'm also going to do is I'm going to constantly be playing this button right here, or setting my cue button here and playing along with the beat. All I'm really doing is just trying to catch up and sync up with what's being played over here. But first, I'm going to turn down the bass of the song that I'm going to introduce.
Just me and you, vibe is crazy between us two. You're my homie, my lover, and even my friend. Now I've said this before, I'ma say it again. Now here is the situation, I like what we got happening, and I don't want nothing coming in between both me and you. Now that you be lieutenant, if you let me be captain, tell me if that's good. I never knew there was a...
Great. So all I really did was, while this song was playing at full volume, and also while my EQ was up in the, while my EQ was in the dead center, so that way everything was up, all my frequencies were up. On this side, this song was playing without the bass, which basically gave room for this song to continue to play. You can hear it slightly or kind of faint in the background while this other song was being mixed in. But as I slowly turn this up, I slowly turn this one down as well. As you can hear now at full volume, you can hear the bass and the kick and the impact of those drums. So if I were to create that same type of transition, this is how it would be.
I never knew there was a...
Great. So that's a transition using the bass kill. Now let's press this button. Now, if you remember from the last video, this knob or the filter knob allows me to use a high pass filter or a low pass filter, depending on which direction I'm turning the knob. So let's listen to it. I'm going to turn it high first. You hear it get very thin, and I can turn it all the way, and I can essentially cut it. You hear a little fragment of it. And if I go in the opposite direction, we're going to hear it muffle and cut. Now all you hear is the bass. Great. So I showed you several transitions. Let's use a transition using this filter knob. Let's change the song too.
Everybody say,
yeah, it's 50 Cent, yeah, and Lloyd Banks, and Young Buck, and Joe.
Baby, I wanna rock and roll with you, tear the club up and still hit them blocks and them shows with you. Can you picture me and you, none of your friends, no crew? We can do whatever you want to do. I take your mind off whatever you're going through. And sit back and relax to the sound of the sax. I'm hood, but that don't mean I ride around with the rats. I work and make you lose a couple pounds in the sack. Get what we got right here. Such a work of art. Wanna put my heart to
let me tell you what I wanna do.
Great. So let's try that same filter effect, but let's go the opposite direction. So here we go. We're going to start with this.
Everybody say,
yeah, it's 50 Cent, yeah, and Lloyd Banks, and Young Buck, and Joe.
Baby, I wanna rock and roll with you, tear the club up and still hit them blocks and them.
Great. Now the other thing I didn't really explain was, why am I touching the side of it? Again, this is for nudging the record. A lot of the times, even though the beats might be lined up, I might have the right BPMs and everything, but sometimes the drums can be a little bit off, and you might want to be able to catch them up a little bit. So that's where I use the side. But now, using the top, I can also scratch. Great. Now, kind of doing what I was doing right now was what's called beat juggling. So let's go into that real quick. For what I'm trying to do now with some beat juggling, I'm going to use two of the same tracks on each side. And the idea is to make it seamless, make it sound like it's a loop happening. So to do that, I'm going to use the cue points. Now, you could do this just on one side to get some practice, but really, you want to be able to do that on one side and then jump to the other, and to the other, and to the other. Eventually, learning how to use the platters to bring back the record, get it ready, move the crossfader, and push the sound forward, and then let it go. Again, creating a seamless loop. So first, I'm going to show you how to create that loop, playing it live on beat. Great. So, doing that will help you just with your timing. So it's great just to practice that every once in a while. Now, let's practice a little bit of actual juggling. I'm going to do juggling, and the idea is that I'm pressing this button really just to keep beat to what's happening on their side. When I'm ready to let go, I'm going to make sure I have it pressed on play. And remember, when it's on pause, when I hit the cue button, it's only a momentary cue. It's a momentary push. So when I press it, it only plays for a moment. But if I press it and hold it down, it continues to play. Now, in order for me to have it repeat like I was doing, I got to make sure that it's playing in order for that button to replay that part. So, let's do a little bit of juggling. Now, let's start with this side. Now remember, timing is everything. So you definitely want to practice that a few times. This transition of juggling can also be done using the platters. Now, these platters are very small, so it's a little difficult to do it, but let's give it a try. Like I said, it's very difficult to do with these little platters, but it's a lot of fun to even try with a little platter. Okay, so we learned a couple of different things. Now let's try to put it all together. I'm going to mix at least 3 songs into each other. So let's go.
The S, the L, the I, the M. Let me tell you what I wanna do. Let me show you that I feel you. Wanna freak, wanna ride with you. Wanna taste, wanna put my lips all over you. Can't get enough of you. Always thinking of you. So sweet, I can't forget. So good, girl, you make me sweat. What I'm talking about. Oh, that's right. Know what I mean? Bitches and free. I need it 'cause you know that I'm free. Getting free. Girl, you taste so good to me. Oh, oh. I never thought that I would be so addicted to you. Underneath, on the side of you. Better yet, baby, right next to you. Like the way you're just flowing down, and I can feel it all around. In the back of you, I love the smell of you. Girl, you know what I'm talking about.
I don't need nobody else around. See, love the way you compliment my style. Though you may end up being my only girl. 'Cause when you're with me, you're my whole world. Like when it's just me and you. Vibe is crazy between us two.
brand new life I can't see. Never thought you'd be a special part of me. No, baby. The reasons are because of you. I can go on and make it through. I can't even take my mind off loving you.
After the party, let's take a little time and talk about it. What's going through your mind? It has me shaking. Oh, it looks so right. I wanna run around. I would be
Okay, so that was a quick mix. In this mix, I was doing a little bit of scratching. I was bringing back the beats a little bit too. I definitely was using my loops. I was using my cue points to jump into the parts that I wanted. And I used some of the effects to transition in and out. So I hope you enjoyed these videos. And if you have any questions, make sure to hit me up, Gonzalo at G Silva Sound, or ask your professor, Professor Cooper, if you have any other questions over any of these courses. So thanks again. Peace.